Episode 7 Guardian of Her Reality. Living between worlds had taught Jade Anderson many things: that monsters could be tender, that nightmares could feel like home, that love didn't always arrive in acceptable packages, and sometimes the most dangerous thing in your life could also be the safest. But the one lesson she was about to learn, written in blood and vengeance across a waking reality, was this: you don't threaten what belongs to a dream demon and expect to walk away intact. The signs started small, easy to dismiss if you weren't paying attention. 3 weeks after Freddy discovered his human form, Jade began noticing things out of place in her apartment. A window she was certain she'd locked, found open in the morning. Her favorite blue coffee mug moved from the cabinet to the counter. Small things, meaningless things. The kind of details you'd normally chalk up to distraction or forgetfulness. Except Jade had been living with a supernatural entity long enough to know that small details mattered. That wrongness had a particular texture, a specific weight, that pressed against your awareness like a hand on the back of your neck. She mentioned it to Freddy one evening while he was in his human form, the two of them cooking dinner together in her small kitchen. Well, Jade was cooking. Freddy was mostly eating ingredients and marveling at flavors, but he was trying. Someone's being in the apartment, she said, stirring pasta sauce with more force than necessary. I can feel it. Things keep moving. The locks feel wrong when I open them, like someone else's hands were the last to touch them. Freddy went very still. That particular kind of stillness that meant the predator underneath the handsome human face had suddenly taken notice. His blue eyes, which had been warm and playful moments before, turned cold and assesses. How long? His voice had dropped into that dangerous register that made her spine tingle, even now. A week, maybe? I wasn't sure at first, thought I was being paranoid. You're never paranoid. Freddy set down the tomato he'd been examining and moved closer to her. His hands found her shoulders, turning her to face him. Tell me everything, every detail, no matter how small. So Jade did, the moved mug, the open window. The feeling of being watched that she'd dismissed as residual anxiety from the stalker incident months ago. The sense that someone had been touching her things, sifting through her life when she wasn't home. With each detail, Freddy's expression grew darker. By the time she finished, his hands on her shoulders had tightened enough to be almost painful, and she could see the effort it took for him to gentle his grip. It's him, Freddy said flatly. Your stalker, Marcus. He came back. But you said you broke him, that he'd be too terrified to ever come near me again. I did break him, Freddy's jaw clenched. Which means he's either stupider than I thought, or he's gone completely over the edge. Obsession can override fear if it gets strong enough. If he's fixated on you badly enough, no amount of nightmare torture would be enough to keep him away. So what do? We? Freddy's laugh was harsh and utterly humorless. There is no we in this, Jade. You're going to stay here where I can watch you, and I'm going to find this piece of shit and finish what I started. Freddy, you can't just kill him. That'll bring police, investigations, questions we don't need. Watch me. The words were cold enough to frost the air between them. He came into your home, Jade. Touched your things. Violated your safe space. There's no coming back from that. No mercy, no second chances. I'm going to tear him apart so thoroughly that they'll need dental records to identify what's left. Part of Jade, the part that had been raised on normal morality and civilized behavior, knew she should argue. Should talk him down, suggest they call the police, handle this through proper channels. But that part was very, very quiet. The louder part, the part that Freddy had recognized and claimed from the first night, felt a fierce satisfaction at the murder in his voice. Marcus had made her feel unsafe in her own home, had violated her sanctuary, and now he was going to pay for that in ways his mundane mind couldn't comprehend. Okay, Jade said simply. Do what you need to do. Freddy stared at her for a long moment, and something complicated crossed his face. Love, and possession, and a dark pride that she'd stopped arguing against his nature. I fucking adore you, he said roughly, and kissed her hard. Most women would be crying or begging me not to be violent, but not you, never you. Most women didn't fall in love with the Springwood slasher, Jade pointed out when he let her breathe. I know what you are. I've never asked you to be anything less. You're perfect. Another kiss, softer this time. Stay inside tonight. Lock everything. I'll be hunting, but I'll keep part of my awareness here with you. If anything feels wrong, if you sense anything off, you call for me. Just think my name hard enough, and I'll come running. I know. Freddy left as the sun set, his form flickering between human and demon as he stepped through the shadows of her apartment and disappeared into the space between realities. Jade locked every door and window like he commanded, checked them twice, and then settled on her couch with a book she had no intention of actually reading. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty without Freddy's presence filling the corners and warming the shadows. Jade tried to focus on the words in front of her, some gothic romance she'd read a dozen times before, but the letters kept blurring together. Hours passed. The sun finished setting, and darkness pressed against the windows. Jade made tea she didn't drink, scrolled through her phone without seeing anything, waited for Freddy to return with news that it was over, that Marcus was dealt with, that she could breathe easy again. She didn't hear the lock on her bedroom window being carefully, quietly picked. The first warning she got was a sound, soft, almost imperceptible, the whisper of fabric against the windowsill in her bedroom, the tiny click of a latch being opened with practiced care. Jade's head snapped up from her book, heart suddenly racing. That had come from her bedroom. Someone was in her bedroom. She opened her mouth to call for Freddy, his name forming on her lips, but she didn't get the chance to make a sound. Marcus stepped into her living room, and the look on his face stopped her cold. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in weeks, which he probably hadn't. Dark circles under eyes that were too bright, too wild. His hair was unwashed and tangled. His clothes hung off a frame that had lost too much weight too quickly. He looked like something that had crawled out of its own grave, animated by obsession and madness. In his right hand, he held a knife, long and sharp and absolutely serious. Hello, Jade, Marcus said, and his voice was raw, like he'd been screaming. Did you miss me? Jade's mind raced. Freddy had told her to call for him if anything felt wrong. But Marcus was here, now, between her and any exit, holding a knife and looking at her with eyes that had gone far beyond rational thought. She needed to stall, keep him talking until Freddy sensed the danger and came back. Marcus, she said carefully, slowly standing from the couch. What are you doing here? What am I doing here? He laughed, and it was a brittle, broken sound. I'm taking back what's mine. You're mine, Jade. I chose you. I was patient, I was careful, and then you had your monster chase me away. But I'm not afraid anymore. I can't sleep anyway. Can't close my eyes without seeing him. So I came back. If I can't have you, if I can't sleep, if I can't have anything, then neither can you. The knife gleamed as he moved closer, and Jade backed up instinctively. Her mind was screaming at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. Marcus was between her and the front door. The windows were too high to jump from safely, and Freddy was somewhere in the dream realm, hunting for a threat that had already found its way inside. Marcus, you don't want to do this, Jade tried, keeping her voice calm even as terror clawed up her throat. Whatever Freddy did to you, I'm sorry, but hurting me won't fix it. It'll only make things worse. Things can't get worse. Marcus's voice cracked, rising toward hysteria. He's in my head. Every time I close my eyes, he's there, cutting me, burning me, telling me what he's going to do if I ever think about you again. But I can't stop thinking about you. You're all I think about. You and him and the nightmares that never end. He was completely over the edge. Jade could see it in the way he moved, jerky and unpredictable. In the way his grip on the knife kept tightening and releasing. He'd snapped under the weight of Freddy's torture, and now there was nothing left but madness and the obsession that had driven him to stalk her in the first place. I'm going to kill you, Marcus said, almost conversationally. I'm going to hurt you the way he hurt me, make you bleed, make you scream. And then maybe, finally, I'll be able to sleep. Maybe the nightmares will stop if you're gone. He lunged. Jade threw herself sideways, narrowly avoiding the knife as it slashed through the space where she'd been standing. She crashed into a bookshelf, sending novels tumbling to the floor. Marcus was on her immediately, grabbing her arm with bruising force and yanking her back toward him. The knife came up, aimed at her chest, and Jade did the only thing she could think of. She screamed Freddy's name. Not out loud, in her mind, with every ounce of terror and desperation and need that she possessed, she screamed his name into the void between worlds and prayed that their bond was strong enough to hear her. The temperature in the apartment dropped so fast that Jade could see her breath crystallize in the air. Marcus felt it too. He hesitated, the knife trembling in his grip, his eyes going wide with recognition and fear. No, he whispered. No, not again. You can't be here. This is the real world. You can't. The shadows in the corner of the room peeled apart like a wound in reality, and Freddy stepped through. Not in his human form. Not even in the usual burned and scarred demon form. This was something else. Something worse. A nightmare given flesh and fury. Reality warping around him as he forced himself fully into the waking world with more solidity than he'd ever managed before. He was tall enough that his fedora brushed the ceiling. His glove caught the light and threw it back in razor-sharp reflections. His eyes burned with actual fire, amber flames that lit up his ruined face and cast dancing shadows across the walls. And when he smiled, it was with too many teeth, all of them sharp. Get away from her, Freddy said, and his voice shook the windows. Marcus made a sound that was half sob, half scream. The knife fell from his nerveless fingers and clattered to the floor. He tried to back up, but there was nowhere to go. Freddy was already moving, crossing the space between them with predatory grace. I warned you, Freddy said softly, and somehow that was more terrifying than if he'd been shouting. I told you what would happen if you came near her again. But you didn't listen. They never listen. Please, Marcus whimpered. Please, I'm sorry. I won't come back. I'll leave. I'll disappear. Just please don't. Too late for please. Freddy grabbed Marcus by the throat and lifted him off the ground one-handed. Way too fucking late. You came into her home, threatened her with a knife, made her afraid in the one place she should always feel safe. There's no apology that fixes that. No mercy that covers it. You just signed your death warrant in the worst possible way. Jade should have looked away, should have closed her eyes or left the room, or done something to avoid watching what came next, but she couldn't move. Could only stand there, breathing hard, watching as Freddy held Marcus suspended in the air like he weighed nothing. Jade, Freddy said without taking his burning eyes off Marcus, go to the bedroom. You don't need to see this. I'm not leaving you. This is gonna get messy. I don't want you to have nightmares about what I'm gonna do to him. Freddy. Jade found her voice, found her strength, and moved closer. I'm not afraid of what you are. I've never been afraid of what you are, so do what you need to do. I'll be right here. Something shifted in Freddy's expression. The fury was still there, would probably always be there when someone threatened what was his, but underneath it was that fierce pride again. That dark love that said she accepted him completely, violence and protection and monstrous devotion, all tangled together. As you wish, Freddy said, and turned his full attention back to Marcus. You hear that? My queen wants to watch, so I'm going to make this slow, make it hurt, make sure you understand exactly what happens when you threaten what belongs to me. What happened next would have made even seasoned horror directors look away. Freddy didn't just kill Marcus. He unmade him, systematically and thoroughly tore apart the man who dared to hurt Jade, who violated her home, who tried to take away the safety she deserved. The bladed glove did terrible work. Each finger found vital points with surgical precision, cutting and slicing and opening Marcus up in ways that should have killed him immediately, but didn't, because Freddy was very good at keeping people alive when he wanted them to suffer. Marcus screamed, begged, cried, promised everything and anything if Freddy would just stop. Freddy didn't stop. Blood painted the walls of Jade's apartment in abstract patterns. The sounds were wet and terrible and would have sent most people running in horror, but Jade just stood there, watching her nightmare boyfriend protect her with a violence that was beautiful in its absolute conviction. When it was finally over, when Marcus's screams had faded into silence and what was left of him had stopped twitching, Freddy dropped the body callously. It hit the floor with a wet thud that sounded very final. Freddy stood there for a moment, chest heaving, covered in blood that steamed in the cool air of the apartment. Then slowly, so slowly, his form began to shift, the demon facade pulling back, the burning eyes cooling to human blue, the impossible height compressing down to 6 feet of man instead of nightmare. When the transformation was complete, Freddy looked at her with something like fear in his eyes. Jade, he said, and his voice was rough. I'm sorry. I tried to warn you to leave. You shouldn't have had to see that. Jade looked at him, really looked at him, at the blood covering his clothes and skin, at the bladed glove still dripping onto her floor, at the body crumpled between them like discarded garbage. Then she crossed the space between them and threw her arms around him. Thank you, she said fiercely, holding him tight despite the blood and gore. Thank you for protecting me, for making me safe, for being exactly what I needed when I needed it most. Freddy's arms came around her carefully, like he was afraid she'd break. Or maybe like he was afraid she'd realize what he was and would start running. You're not horrified, he said, and it wasn't quite a question. I'm relieved. I was so scared, Freddy. He had a knife and he was going to kill me, and all I could think was that I needed you, that you'd come for me, and you did. Always, his grip tightened. I'll always come for you, always protect you. Doesn't matter what world I have to tear apart to get to you, I'll do it. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the wreckage of Jade's living room, blood cooling on the floor around them. Then practical concerns started intruding. We need to clean this up, Jade said finally, and get rid of the body. I love you, but I really don't want to explain to my landlord why there's a corpse in my apartment. Despite everything, Freddy laughed. You're thinking about your security deposit right now? I'm thinking about not going to prison for a murder I didn't technically commit. She pulled back to look at him. Can you make it disappear? The body, the blood, all of it? You've pulled off bigger reality warping than this. I can. Freddy studied her face carefully. You really okay with this? With what I just did? I killed someone in your living room, Jade. Tore him apart while you watched. That's not something you can unsee. He tried to kill me first. As far as I'm concerned, this was self-defense. Very graphic, very violent self-defense, but self-defense nonetheless. She reached up to cup his blood-spattered face. Stop waiting for me to freak out and reject you. It's not gonna happen. I knew what you were from the beginning, and I chose you anyway. That hasn't changed. You're insane. We've established that. Now less talking, more making the crime scene disappear before someone calls the cops about the screaming. Freddy kissed her, hard and claiming and tasting like copper and smoke. Then he turned to survey the damage, his eyes assessing. Go take a shower, he said. Get the blood off you. I'll handle this. You sure? I've been covering up murders for longer than you've been alive, sweetheart. This is amateur hour compared to what I used to do. Jade left him to it, heading to the bathroom and stripping out of her ruined clothes. The shower water ran red for longer than was comfortable, washing away the evidence of violence from her skin, but no amount of soap could wash away the memory of what she'd witnessed. Freddy, fully manifested in her world, defending her with a brutality that should have been terrifying. The casual way he'd torn Marcus apart, like the man was nothing more than an inconvenience to be removed, the complete lack of mercy or hesitation. It should have scared her, should have made her question everything about their relationship. Instead, it made her feel safe, protected, cherished in a dark and twisted way that probably said concerning things about her mental health, but felt right nonetheless. When she emerged from the shower, wrapped in her robe, the living room looked pristine. The blood was gone, the body had vanished, even the knife had disappeared. The only evidence anything had happened was a slight chill in the air and a lingering scent of ozone that came with Freddy's more intense reality warping. Freddy himself was sitting on the couch, cleaned up and back in his human form, wearing fresh clothes that had materialized from wherever dream demons kept their wardrobes. He looked up when she entered, and the relief in his eyes was palpable. All gone, he reported. The body will never be found. I scattered it across so many nightmares that there's nothing left to identify. As far as the waking world is concerned, Marcus Webb never made it to your apartment tonight. What about his car? His things? Won't people look for him? Let them look. They'll find a man who'd been suffering from severe insomnia and paranoid delusions, who told his few friends he was planning to leave the state, who withdrew all his money and disappeared without a trace. It's not even suspicious, just sad. Another lost soul who couldn't handle reality anymore. Freddy's smile was sharp. I'm very good at covering my tracks, Jade. You don't survive as long as I have without learning how to clean up after yourself. Jade settled beside him on the couch, and immediately his arm came around her shoulders, pulling her close. She could feel him checking her over, making sure she was really okay, that she hadn't been hurt beyond the fading adrenaline and fear. I'm fine, she assured him, a little shaken up, but fine. You got here in time. Barely. If I'd been 1 minute later, if you hadn't called for me when you did, his arm tightened almost painfully. I can't think about that, about what would happen if I'd lost you. But you didn't lose me. I'm right here, safe, because you protected me. They sat in silence for a while, processing. Jade's mind was still racing, replaying the attack and the rescue in vivid detail. The look on Marcus's face, the sound of Freddy's voice as he'd stepped through shadows, the wet, terrible sounds of violence. I need you to understand something, Freddy said eventually. What happened tonight is not going to be the last time. I'm a magnet for violence, Jade. Always have been. And now that you're with me, that violence is going to touch your life too. There'll be other threats. Other people who want to hurt you to get to me, or hurt me through you, or just hurt you because humans are fucking terrible sometimes. I know. And every time, I'm going to do exactly what I did tonight. I'm going to tear apart anyone who threatens you with absolutely no mercy. It's what I am. What I'll always be. Jade turned to look at him fully. I'm not asking you to change. I'm not asking you to be less violent or less protective. I'm asking you to let me stand beside you while you do it. To stop trying to shield me from what you are. I can handle it, Freddy. I can handle all of it. You shouldn't have to. Maybe not. But I want to. Because this is the price of loving you, right? Understanding that protection comes with the body count. That your version of keeping me safe is permanent and brutal and absolute. I knew that from the beginning. I chose it anyway. Freddy stared at her like she was something holy and terrible all at once. How are you real? How did I get lucky enough to find the one person in the world who looks at my worst and loves me more for it? Because I'm just as twisted as you are. I just hide it better. She kissed him softly. We're perfect for each other. Monster and the woman who chose him. Nightmare and the dreamer who wasn't afraid. Dreamer who wasn't afraid, Freddy repeated and smiled. I like that. That's what you are, my fearless dreamer. They moved to the bedroom eventually, both meeting sleep after the adrenaline crash. Jade changed into her favorite blue nightshirt while Freddy stripped down to nothing, his human form no longer needing the pretense of clothing prior. They crawled into bed together, and Jade curled into his side with a sigh of contentment that should have been impossible after the night they'd had. That this was where she felt safest, in Freddy's arms, protected by something more dangerous than any human threat. Thank you, she murmured into the darkness, for coming when I called, for protecting me, for being mine. Thank you for letting me, Freddy replied, his fingers tangling in her hair, for not running when you saw what I really am, for standing there and watching me tear someone apart and not flinching from it. I'll never flinch from you. I know, that's what terrifies me. Jade smiled and pressed a kiss to his chest. Love you. My demon. My guardian. My Freddy. Love you, too. My queen. My dreamer. My Jade. Sleep pulled at her, deep and exhausted. Before she gave in to it completely, she felt Freddy's power wrap around her like a blanket, protective and possessive and absolutely unshakable. Tomorrow, they'd deal with the aftermath. Make sure there were no loose ends. Strengthen the protections around her apartment so nothing could get in uninvited again. Build even more safeguards into their life between worlds. But tonight, Jade let herself rest in the certainty that she was loved, protected by something that would burn the world down before letting her be hurt. And in the space between waking and dreaming, Freddy stood guard over her sleep, his consciousness split between holding her in the real world and walking the nightmares to make sure nothing else could threaten what was his. The barrier between worlds had shattered completely now. Freddy could exist in her reality with the same solidity as anyone else, could defend her not just in dreams, but in flesh and blood and absolute violence. He was hers in every world, in every form, in every moment. And she was his. Forever bound, forever protected, forever choosing each other despite the darkness and the danger and the beautiful terrible thing their love had become. A dream demon and the woman who loved him, a nightmare king and his fearless queen. Building a life together from shadows and devotion, from violence and tenderness, from the absolute certainty that nothing in any world would tear them apart. They'd survived the collision of realities, survived a threat that tried to take away what they'd built. And they'd come through it stronger, more connected, more certain than ever that what they had was worth any price, any danger, any amount of blood spilled to protect it. In the morning, Jade would wake up safe in her apartment with Freddie beside her. They'd have breakfast together. He'd probably make bad jokes about the previous night's violence. She'd probably laugh and kiss him and feel that fierce joy of being alive and loved by something impossible. And somewhere in the city, investigations would begin into the disappearance of Marcus Webb. Investigations that would lead nowhere, find nothing, end in frustrated confusion and eventual cold case status. Because Freddy Krueger had been covering up murders for decades, and this one was more important than all the others combined. This one had protected his queen, his love, his reason for being something more than just an endless nightmare. So it would stay buried, hidden, erased from reality as thoroughly as Marcus himself had been erased. Leaving behind only two people who knew the truth, cuddled together in the darkness, protected by a love that was stronger than fear, deeper than nightmare, more permanent than death itself. The guardian of her reality. The demon who'd chosen protection over endless hunting. The monster who'd learned to love. And the woman who taught him how.